there'll be no need to walk with more than one ID. Support the new national ID. Get the facts at nidsfacts.com or on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at NIDSFacts. Jamaicans, here are the facts about NIDS. You will not go to prison for not having a national ID. You will not be denied access to public health services or your personal doctor. You will not be denied access to education. And we do not want your DNA or your banking information. Just like the national census, you can volunteer information, but you will not be forced to reveal your private business. You will have over 3 years to get the new ID, and it is free. Don't follow rumors. Get the facts at nidsfacts.com. The national ID will protect your identity. In these modern times, we all need protection from fraud and identity theft. We're moving Jamaica into the modern era, where your privacy is top priority. Your fingerprint and your picture will secure your ID. This is no different from when you apply for a visa or a passport. Get the facts at nidsfacts.com. NIDS is here for your protection. The national ID system will register your picture and fingerprint. It will not need an iris scan unless you don't have a fingerprint, and will only take a footprint if you can't give an iris scan or a fingerprint. This will help people with disabilities to get a national ID. NIDS is about inclusion, not exclusion, protecting the rights of all Jamaicans. Get the facts at nidsfacts.com. What is the National Identification System? The new national ID will for the first time give Jamaicans one ID that is trusted and verifiable. This means easier access to government services like PATH and NIS. It will be easier to do business with the government and the private sector. Eventually, there'll be no need to walk with more than one ID. Support the new national ID. Get the facts at nidsfacts.com or on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at NIDSFacts. Jamaicans, here are the facts about NIDS. You will not go to prison for not having a national ID. You will not be denied access to public health services or your personal doctor. You will not be denied access to education. And we do not want your DNA or your banking information. Just like the national census, you can volunteer information, but you will not be forced to reveal your private business. You will have over 3 years to get the new ID, and it is free. Don't follow rumors. Get the facts at nidsfacts.com. The national ID will protect your identity. In these modern times, we all need protection from fraud and identity theft. We're moving Jamaica into the modern era, where your privacy is top priority. Your fingerprint and your picture will secure your ID. This is no different from when you apply for a visa or a passport. Get the facts at nidsfacts.com. NIDS is here for your protection. The national ID system will register your picture and fingerprint. It will not need an iris scan unless you don't have a fingerprint, and will only take a footprint if you can't give an iris scan or a fingerprint. This will help people with disabilities to get a national ID. NIDS is about inclusion, not exclusion, protecting the rights of all Jamaicans. Get the facts at nidsfacts.com. What is the National Identification System? The new national ID will for the first time give Jamaicans one ID that is trusted and verifiable. This means easier access to government services like PATH and NIS. It will be easier to do business with the government and the private sector. Eventually, there'll be no need to walk with more than one ID. Support the new national ID. Get the facts at nidsfacts.com or on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at NIDSFacts. Jamaicans, here are the facts about NIDS. You will not go to prison for not having a national ID. You will not be denied access to public health services or your personal doctor. You will not be denied access to education. And we do not want your DNA or your banking information. Just like the national census, you can volunteer information, but you will not be forced to reveal your private business. You will have over 3 years to get the new ID, and it is free. Don't follow rumors. Get the facts at nidsfacts.com. The national ID will protect your identity. In these modern times, we all need protection from fraud and identity theft. We're moving Jamaica into the modern era, where your privacy is top priority. Your fingerprint and your picture will secure your ID. This is no different from when you apply for a visa or a passport. Get the facts at nidsfacts.com. NIDS is here for your protection. The National ID system will register your picture and fingerprint. It will not need an iris scan unless you don't have a fingerprint, and will only take a footprint if you can't give an iris scan or a fingerprint. This will help people with disabilities to get a national ID. NIDS is about inclusion, not exclusion, protecting the rights of all Jamaicans. Get the facts at nidsfacts.com. What is the National Identification System? The new National ID will for the first time give Jamaicans one ID that is trusted and verifiable. This means easier access to government services like PATH and NIS. It will be easier to do business with the government and the private sector. Eventually, there'll be no need to walk with more than one ID. Support the new National ID. Get the facts at nidsfacts.com or on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at nidsfacts. Jamaicans, here are the facts about NIDS. You will not go to prison for not having a national ID. You will not be denied access to public health services or your personal doctor. You will not be denied access to education. And we do not want your DNA or your banking information. Just like the national census, you can volunteer information, but
the National Identification System, NIDS, has endured a long storied journey from inception to realization. It began in the 1970s with the case for a national registration system with each person from birth issued with a unique number. By the 1990s, the Electoral Advisory Committee, EAC, made a recommendation for the establishment of a body to implement a national registration system, and as such, Cabinet approved the establishment of a national registration unit in the Ministry of Health in 1993, leading to the tabling of a national registration bill in 1995, which was later presented to Parliament in the year 2000. In July 2011, approval was given for the National Registration Unit to be transferred from the Ministry of Health to the Office of the Prime Minister. Then, in September 2011, the GOJ received a US $670,000 grant from the Inter-American Development Bank to commence the preparatory work required for the implementation of NIDS. The NIDS project was officially launched at the Jamaica
Check 1 2 1 2. Check 1 2. Good. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As we await the arrival of the Prime Minister, I'm just going to ask that you just take your seats as we get ready to start today's ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness. Make him feel welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Please remain standing for the national anthem. Thank you. You may be seated. Are you happy to be here? Oh, come on. Let's do that again. Are you happy to be here? 40 years in the making. And finally, a concept is being born. Let me just firstly recognize the Most Honorable Prime Minister, Andrew Michael Holness. We also want to recognize Mr. Hugh Graham. Mr. Hugh Graham is representing Mr. Mark Golding, the leader of the opposition. We also want to say welcome to Mr. Floyd Green, Honorable Floyd Green, Minister with a portfolio in the office of the Prime Minister. Other members of Cabinet, Mrs. Amy Tashku, Charge of Affairs of the United States Embassy, members of the House of Parliament, Mr. Benjamin Rosette from the IDB, Dr. Warren Vernon from the NIDS unit, stakeholders of the public and private sector organizations, civil society, media representatives, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to flight NIDS 2023. If you are here, you're a passenger in history in the making. I am your co-pilot for today's flight, and my name is Richard Delapeno, and I will be taking you through the journey as we look to take off. So fasten your seatbelts, and let's get ready as we get this thing on the way. Well, you know, when we are traveling, we don't do travel without inviting God's presence, right? So at this time, I'm going to ask Pastor Dane Fletcher, who is representing the Jamaica Union Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, to now say a word of prayer for us.
Good morning, everyone. Let us stand for prayer, please. Eternal Father, we owe our existence to you. When the architects of our sovereignty as a nation considered our independence, there was fervent belief that we would need your perpetual blessing. Lord, we need your blessing now. But how can we ask you to bless us without acknowledging that we have sinned? We have done evil when we should have done good. Sometimes we failed to do what we should have done. Other times we cast a blind eye on evil. Have mercy on us, Lord, we pray. Even with good intentions, we have engaged in corrupt practices, using influence to advance personal agenda rather than the holistic development of our nation. Forgive us, O Lord, we pray. Remove us from personal preferences and partisan prejudices, and unite us on the platform of human dignity with the innovation and creativity of Jamaican excellence. Help us to create a fertile crescent of social cohesion where we will not just seek to get a bigger slice of the pie, but that we will unite to bake a bigger pie so that each citizen can get a bigger slice of pie. As we assemble for this special national identity launch, we pray that we all will play our part in establishing a system of equity, justice, fairness, respect, and that with solidarity, we will coalesce around the principles and values that will transform our nation to the extent that we realize Vision 2030. Help us, O God, to make Jamaica the place of choice to live and work, raise families, and do business. Bless us to this end, O Lord, we pray, in Jesus' name.
You may be seated. Thank you, Pastor Fletcher, for that wonderful words of prayer. Ladies and gentlemen, now that we have established the presence of God on this journey, I want you to look to the screens at this moment as we're going to just take you back in time, just to show you where this national identification system is coming from and the reason why we are here today. So at this time, we'll play a video.
The National Identification System, NIDS, has endured a long storied journey from inception to realization. It began in the 1970s with the case for a national registration system with each person from birth issued with a unique number. By the 1990s, the Electoral Advisory Committee, EAC, made a recommendation for the establishment of a body to implement a national registration system, and as such, Cabinet approved the establishment of a national registration unit in the Ministry of Health in 1993, leading to the tabling of a national registration bill in 1995, which was later presented to Parliament in the year 2000. In July 2011, approval was given for the National Registration Unit to be transferred from the Ministry of Health to the Office of the Prime Minister. Then, in September 2011, the GOJ received a US $670,000 grant from the Inter-American Development Bank to commence the preparatory work required for the implementation of NIDS. The NIDS project was officially launched at the Jamaica House on September 27, 2011. By December of that same year, Cabinet approved the development of a NIDS policy. This was followed by the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding between eGov Jamaica Limited and the Government of Jamaica to provide technical support in the management of the ICT consultancy required to design the NIDS architecture. In November 2016, the NIDS White Paper was tabled in Parliament, and by June 2017, Prime Minister Andrew Holness opened the debate on the National Identification and Registration Bill in Parliament, which was eventually passed in November 2017 by the Houses of Parliament. A Technical and Security Committee was established by the Office of the Prime Minister to design and develop the requirements for a new electronic and digital identification system. Also in that same year, the Office of the Prime Minister initiated an international competitive bidding process to identify a consortium of international and local experts to supply the National Identification System solution. That process lasted 2 years and concluded in 2019 when a contract was awarded to the PBS consortium made up of Entrust Data Card, PBS Jamaica, Group of Vision, and Thales Group to supply the National Identification System solution. In February 2018, the government of Jamaica signed a loan agreement with the IDB for US $68 million for the NIDS and other projects. However, the act would hit a snag in 2019 when the Supreme Court ruled that the National Identification and Registration Act of 2017 was null and void and of no legal effect. Committed to realizing the vision of the NIDS, the government recalibrated its approach with the designing of a new NIDS policy, which led to the Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, tabling a new National Identification and Registration Act 2020 in December 2020, which made provisions for a voluntary NIDS.
I table a bill shortly entitled the National Identification and Registration Act 2020.
Committed to an inclusive effort, a joint select committee comprising both political parties to review the new NIDS bill was formed. The first sitting of the committee started on January 5, 2021, and various groups, organizations, and individuals were allowed to make submissions to the committee. On Tuesday, July 6, 2021, Honorable Delroy Chuck laid on the table of the House of Representatives the report of the Joint Select Committee.
Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of the House a copy of the report of the Joint Select Committee on its deliberations on a bill shortly entitled the National Identification and Registration Act 2020.
The House of Representatives on Tuesday, July 20th, approved the report of the Joint Select Committee.
The question before the House is that the report be now approved. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
The legislation made provisions for a voluntary and secure national identification system for Jamaica, and a bill entitled the National Identification and Registration Act 2021 was tabled.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will move to introduce and have read a first time a bill shortly entitled the National Identification and Registration Act 2021.
Later that year, on September 21, 2021, the House of Representatives began debating on the NIDS, which was eventually passed in the House of Representatives on October 13, 2021, and by the Senate on November 19, 2021.
I am honored to rise once more today, this time to open the debate on the National Identification and Registration Act 2021.
So for the most part, the opposition is supportive of the NIDS bill.
A bill entitled An Act to Provide for a National Identification and Registration Authority for a National Identification System and for Connected Matters read a third time and passed.
NIDS was now back on track, and by January 4th, 2022, Prime Minister the Most Honorable Andrew Holness toured the NIDS Card Production Center in Kingston. This was followed up with the contract signing between Fujitsu Limited and the Government of Jamaica on May 6, 2022 to facilitate the digitization of records processed at the RGD. No sooner, Jamaicans were introduced to the design of the National ID card in the House of Representatives on May 24, 2022. The government on June 3, 2022, signed a Memorandum of Understanding with deposit-taking institutions to participate in the pilot of the National Identification System, NIDS. Today, the government of Jamaica is proud to launch the technical pilot for the National Identification System, NIDS, a simple, safe, and secure way to verify one's identity. One ID, many opportunities.
Ladies and gentlemen, you love that video? A wonderful recap of the history of the National Identification System up to today. And so we're all here a part of history, the launch of the National Identification System technical pilot launch. And so at this time, I want to hear a few words from those persons who were involved and who have been integral in this National Identification System. And I'm going to welcome to the podium someone who I mentioned earlier, Mr. Benjamin Rosette. He is the Modernization of State Specialist in the IDB Bank. Make him feel welcome.
Thank you very much, Richard. Good morning, everyone. All protocols having been observed, I would like to thank the Government of Jamaica and the NIDS team for the opportunity to speak here today. I also want to bring the regards of the IDB representative in Jamaica, Mr. Tariq Ali, who is unfortunately out of the country today. In preparation for this event, for some reason, I couldn't stop thinking about my son. You know, my son, he's 5. He's currently in kindergarten. And in August, he's going to make the big leap to first grade. His mom and I are nervous, anxious about what this next stage will bring, but mostly proud of the young man that he's shaping up to be. Why, you might ask, does a NIDS event make me think about my son? I suppose that it's because for many of you here today, for the Honorable Prime Minister, for Minister Green, for Dr. Vernon, and many others, the NIDS is your baby. It's your work baby, of course, but your baby nonetheless. Now, in the life of any child, there are many moments that are simultaneously endings and beginnings. There's the end of diapers and the beginning of accidents. There's the end of the cute baby babble and the beginning of demands, etc. Now, for the NIDS, today is also an ending and a beginning. It's the end of the preparation, also the anxiety and the worry, and the beginning of enrollment. It's the beginning of this rubber hitting the road phase of this long-held national project. At a more technical level, of course, today is also marking a shift in emphasis. While there's still a few important preparatory pieces underway, such as the creation of the National Identification and Registration Authority and the refurbishment of a number of enrollment sites around the country, undeniably, the two most important words from here on out are enrollment and use. And these two words, enrollment and use, are, of course, inextricably connected. The NIDS being optional, people will only choose to enroll if their card can be used to their benefit. And service providers, on the other hand, will only likely adapt their services for use with the NIDS if there are critical mass of people enrolled. This conundrum is, for all of us supporting the NIDS, a call to action. For this grand national project to realize its potential, we must now push as much as we can for private companies and public institutions to accept the NIDS in both its physical and particularly its online modality, and for individuals to enroll in the NIDS. This big push is necessary to establish a new equilibrium in which the NIDS is essential for individuals, institutions, and companies, such that both enrollment and the creation of use cases is simply a natural expression of self-interest. It's said that it takes a village to raise a child. I would argue that also it takes a village to bring about the societal paradigm shift that is the core of the promise of the NIDS. A country in which every citizen can be irrefutably identified with agile access to services, in which this digitally enabled ID is the cornerstone for a digital society. The IDB is honored to be a part of this village supporting the NIDS. We look forward to continuing to partner with the government of Jamaica through the next stage of its growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. I just also want to welcome those who are watching us online on the various pages, the Prime Minister pages, the YouTube pages of the JIS and PBCJ. At this time, I'm going to welcome a gentleman who has been spearheading the National Identification System project for the last couple of years, a gentleman who is much taller than I am, and I'm going to welcome at this time Dr. Warren Vernon, Project Director for the NIDS.
Okay, thank you, Richard. We'll talk about that after, okay? Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All protocols observed. Today, we are witnessing a watershed moment in Jamaica, delivering trusted identity authentication and verification as a valuable economic asset for all Jamaicans in the form of identity as a service. The idea of identity as a service started with a different concept, a national identification card for Jamaicans years ago. Nearly 50 years ago, before 90% of the current implementation team members were born, notwithstanding our own history with the development of an accurate population register in the form of national identification, some persons are of a different view that the recording of population identification is best explained in the Bible through the book of Numbers, which provides clarity on how the collection of census information helps with the understanding of the population of Israel. And I see Mr. Graham looking at me, you know about that one. So, at the beginning and near the end of their wanderings in the wilderness, I am sharing this brief perspective to say that it is almost impossible to provide for a population if you don't know the accurate size and the characteristics of the population. As we reflect on how we got here, the journey, Prime Minister, to this point was difficult and filled with barriers that could have easily derailed one of the most important national development projects. If it had not been for the effective policy and strategic support received from the Office of the Prime Minister. Honorable Prime Minister, you have been a major champion for the NIDS, and today would not have been possible without you. Thank you for revamping the long-standing concept of a national identification card into a practical system, practical policies for a modern electronic and digital identification system. So I want you to understand clearly where we are coming from. We are coming from an identification card to an electronic and digital identification system. Prime Minister, your vision to make electronic identification and digital signature standard tools for all Jamaicans is now a reality today. It is now a reality. NIDS almost failed after the 2019 Supreme Court ruling. It took active risk management and the insights of the Cabinet to support the team in focusing on non-NIDS activities. And I recall Mr. Robinson said to me, Warren, I know you're still implementing. You remember Mr. Robinson? But at that time, the focus was on building out the government of Jamaica ICT infrastructure, because NIDS was never about NIDS only. It was about building out the infrastructure to support the digital agenda. So, for our successes to date, we have many policymakers. We have the opposition to thank. We have many entities. We have our international partners. We have several technical and support teams right across government who contributed significantly to the development of NIDS. I wish to single out the Honorable Delroy Chuck, even though he's not here, for his role in guiding the project team, Sharika, in the back end. Really appreciate his work. And I will say, if you want to get something done with little friction, ask Minister Chuck. It was after the process I understood why the Prime Minister asked Minister Chuck to do it, because he's easy to work with. And thank you, Minister Chuck. There are several other ministers who participated in the process, and I just want to express a sense of gratitude to you all for your contribution. There is no doubt that today's successes are the result of a solid and sustainable partnership with EGOV Jamaica Limited, Jamaica Post, Tax Administration Jamaica, and I saw Hank Williams and Mr. Powell here, the Inter-American Development Bank, Entrust Data Card, PBS Jamaica, Group of Vision, Thales Group, the Planning Institute, and the NIDS team in the Office of the Prime Minister, all working together every day to deliver identity as a service. As we progress, the Republic of Korea contributed significant resources and expertise during the development of the NIDS. The OPC, the SG and her team, the Jamaica Bankers Association, as I mentioned before, the Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of National Security all provided assistance, as did the Ministry of Technology also played a key role. The Bank of Jamaica, the FSC, the FID, the JCP, the PICA, and the RGD. As you know, the RGD is a critical part of what we are doing, because Charlton will tell you that civil registration is the beginning. Right, Charlton? Very, very important. At the strategic level, I am not seeing PS Sewell, but I want to recognize my permanent secretary, and I'm saying the Honorable Audrey Sewell, for her firm and transparent leadership. Because of her leadership and guidance, we have continued to earn a clean audit every year since the inception of the project, which is very important. Prime Minister is serious about that. PS is serious about that, and we are grateful for that. During the implementation of the NIDS, we worked with some dedicated civil servants, and I want to recognize them, dedicated and selfless civil servants. It's an important thing to note is that the self-sacrificing civil servants have a different view. They view things differently. They see their efforts as contributing to a project that will improve the lives of every Jamaican, and most importantly, a tool that will change how we deliver trusted public service to every Jamaican. The selfless civil servants, from my recalling how they operate, they will come into work at 8:30 a.m. and they are willing to stay beyond 5 p.m. to help us to design the NIDS solution. Ladies and gentlemen, without naming them, help me to salute those civil servants. We know your contribution, and we thank you. Over the next 3 months, we will focus on the technical pilot to test drive all the processes and subsystems of the NIDS in a controlled environment. We will obtain the International Civil Aviation Organization certification. We will review every piece of feedback. So we're encouraging the public to participate, to optimize the system in preparation for national rollout. We will rapidly begin to make available enrollment centers across all parish capitals in the Jamaica Post offices. And I want to say that apart from churches, Jamaica Post has the most significant reach. Where's Mr. Allen? You agree, Mr. Allen? They are in every community, most of which are within walking distance. Right, Mr. Allen? The government also owns the post offices. So any investment in making them better can only be considered a direct benefit to the communities they serve. Look around. This is an example of the work that we are doing with Postmaster General Mr. Lincoln Allen and his team in transforming the post offices. How many of you remember this space a couple of months ago? Mr. Allen, thank you for your support. This space, I recall in your speech, Mr. Allen, you indicated that it was 42 years ago. This upgrade was the first in 42 years. So this partnership between NIDS, the Office of the Prime Minister, and Jamaica Post is a strong partnership. This partnership is deliberate and strategic to improve the post offices and to minimize the cost of providing national identification cards to Jamaicans within walking distance of their homes. This is critical, especially for rural communities. Jamaica Post provides an already established network for the shipment of national identification cards to post offices island-wide without any additional capital investment from the state. So we are leveraging what is there to deliver value to the people. As we launch NIDS, let us never forget that security is everybody's business. And I know Mr. Robinson is always saying that. Security is everybody's business. But guess what? With the government playing a significant role in hardening the security controls and the legislative framework for NIDS to deliver the anticipated value for all Jamaicans and participating accredited third parties. In the next couple of months, the leadership of NIRA, the National Identification and Registration Authority, this is the new entity that is going to manage NIDS and civil registration, and the National Identification and Registration Inspectorate, the ECJ, they are going to lead the next phase in delivering this national rollout. Like the top 10 countries on the 2021 Transparency International Index that deliver trusted public services using digital identification, we want Jamaica to be on the top 10 list in the next 5 to 10 years after the widespread adoption of identity as a service for the public good. Take, for example, Aadhaar, India's version of a national identification system. It cost the government $2 billion to implement, and is estimated to have saved the Indian government somewhere about $25 billion since its implementation in cutting what we call corruption and fraud, because they are in a position to identify people based on who they are and not based on something that a person has. That is an example of a real economic asset, which is what we are doing here. And my final reflection before I close, it is as vivid, looking back as day, that we need a fast end-to-end ecosystem for national development projects. National development projects should be executed on time, within budget, and with agreed upon quality to deliver value for people. We don't have another 40 years to conceptualize and implement massive national development projects like the NIDS. We must move fast. We must move now. To do this, we must demonstrate humility and emotional intelligence, as history has taught us. If we learn from our failures, we can only emerge stronger. Today, NIDS is stronger. Today, Jamaica is stronger. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Vernon. And I must publicly acknowledge the work that Dr. Vernon has been doing at the PEU. Without his leadership, we would not be here also today. So give him another round of applause, man. I want to ensure that, we're on good paper. But at this time, I'm going to invite to the podium a gentleman who Dr. Vernon referred to as our champion, a man who has championed this national identification system for the last couple of years. We know him as our boss. We know him as our father. We know him as our leader. We know him as the builder. But we also know him as the Prime Minister of Jamaica. Let us now welcome Andrew Michael Holness, the most honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Richard. Allow me to also thank Pastor Dane Fletcher for his well-thought-out prayer. Mr. Hugh Graham, representing the leader of the opposition, I was trying to make heads or tails of your article. Whether it's heads or tails, you can tell me. And I know I've gotten you into some trouble because I'm seeing Julian Robinson here as well. That's a good one, Julia. That's a good one. The Honorable Floyd Green and the Honorable Favour Williams, Mrs. Amy Tatro, Deputy Chief of Mission and Charge of Affairs of the U.S. Embassy, welcome. Now, Benjamin Rosette, are you sure you're not a speechwriter or a poet or... whenever I listen to your presentations, they're so well scripted. Don't you agree? I mean, so I was thinking of inviting you into my office to write my speeches. Dr. Warren Vernon, Program Director for the NIDS, stakeholders of the public and private sector who are here, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Today is a very special occasion for me on a personal level. And as I sat here and listened to the previous speakers, I could not help but reflect on the journey of the National Identification System. NIDS has taken over 40 years in coming, and now we are here today launching the NIDS technical pilot. In fact, during those 40 years, there were junctures when the policy intent for public good struggled to emerge in the face of challenges, but we remained undaunted. We kept pressing. Your government understands the importance of electronic digital identification for all Jamaicans and the role electronic digital identification plays in transforming and growing our society. I must say that I'm also happy to see members of the opposition here today, and it reaffirms the collective commitment to the implementation of the system and the importance of the project. We are this close to rolling out nationally across Jamaica. And I know that there is great anticipation, indeed I may say excitement, amongst Jamaicans who are hoping to benefit from having a national ID. The benefit of a national ID is a big thing. It's a big thing for our young people who are below 18. In other words, presently, there is no national identification for people below the voting age. Now, we will have this. That's a big thing. It's a big thing when we eliminate the requirement for multiple forms of identification. So now you don't have to carry 2 IDs plus a reference to say you are who you are. It's a big thing when you don't have to go to your doctor, a lawyer, a policeman, or a justice of the peace to verify who you are. That's a big thing. So over the past years, we have taken the time to craft a new policy and law that is in keeping with the Supreme Court ruling. And I believe that we have done so very well. Today we launch the technical pilot for the program, and our citizens need to fully understand the process involved in rolling out a system of this magnitude. We have put in place a framework to protect the data collected under the NIDS. We have embedded into law serious consequences for data breaches. Most importantly, however, the NIDS is subject to the Data Protection Act. I must also stress the importance of consent, where the individual must give permission for their identity to be verified. And that is a first in our jurisdiction. In addition, the system itself has built-in mechanisms to ensure that identity verification is detected and shared with the data owner for transparency. So if somebody seeks to verify who you are, checks in on your record, you are notified. And that is the ultimate form of protecting the data and ensuring transparency. So you know who is checking on your identity. The encryption of data, separation of the data, and the collection of minimum data. In other words, we are only collecting what we need to verify your identity. And this is in itself a form of guarantee that minimizes the exposure of your data, any breach of data, or any invasion of privacy. Now, of course, no system in the world is 100% foolproof, but that is not an excuse to avoid implementing a system that will improve our day-to-day lives by simplifying time-consuming complex processes. Some people are of the view that only digital systems can be breached. And there are people who believe this and have extreme faith in paper-based systems. Well, data breaches can and occur regularly in paper-based systems where files are stored. But remember what I said earlier. In our digital system, if someone goes to verify, accesses your record, you are notified. Presently, if someone goes in the paper-based system, you are not going to get a letter. Nobody's sending you an email. If somebody takes their phone and takes a picture of it, you will never know. So, in my opinion, when you compare the digital system to the paper-based system, in terms of the ability to actually protect it, it's far superior. Now, we will be rolling out the NIDS in various phases. Today is phase 1. We are out of the diaper phase, but there will be no accidents. And this is where we will have the technical pilot rollout, after which we will commence a national rollout all across Jamaica, in all parishes. In parallel, work is proceeding to establish the National Identification and Registration Authority, NIRA, which will manage the NIDS. The technical pilot is a very important phase, and today we launch a process to test drive all the processes and subsystems that we have been developing in the last 3 years. During the pilot, it is of significance that we will move to obtain the International Civil Aviation Organization's, the ICAO certification. The Jamaica National Identification Card will therefore follow the international standards for digital identity enacted by ICAO. This is the same standard used in all the programs in Europe and most of the new programs in the Americas and Asia-Pacific region. This is also the same standard adopted for electronic passports. So our card will be on the cutting edge, meeting the most popular and most widely used international standards. That gives us options in the future. By adopting this standard, NIDS is delivering a card that can be used for multiple applications, using solutions from multiple vendors and delivering the highest level of security and data protection. We are pleased that we are receiving calls and emails from the public who are eager to enroll, which is a good sign, as many Jamaicans would like not only an ID, that is their physical card, but they also recognize the importance of a digital ID. We expect to have 24 enrollment sites island-wide, and today we will have the opportunity to view the first enrollment site and the card personalization center to be open under the NIDS project. The NIDS program has partnered with various ministries, departments, and agencies. One such is Jamaica Post. Under the project, spaces within various post offices will be modernized and transformed into enrollment centers. The NIDS and Jamaica Post will work closely together, demonstrating how joined-up government and strong partnership between MDAs can deliver service and value for citizens. The space in which we are having this launch today is the first to receive such a modification, and I must say, a job well done. I, in particular, draw your attention to this lovely mural which depicts the history of Jamaica's postal service. It is important to re-emphasize that the information being collected under the NIDS is nothing new from what we used to collect during I think that's why I need to have you in my the point that was being made in this paragraph is that the information that we are collecting for the NIDS is nothing new from what we have been collecting in other identification processes. And even then, we have the voting cards, which has collected biometrics. Now, as we tour the facility, you will be able to see how we do the data collection. Now, the card itself is made from a polycarbonate material, and the information will be engraved. So the information we collect will be engraved and digitally stored on the card. There are also several security features on the card to prevent duplication or misuse. From the law that guides the design of the card to the databases and the encryption of data, to the monitoring and oversight of the authority, to the functionality of the system, there are various levels of embedded security. And I want to stress that we have gone over and beyond what is required to ensure that we have one of the safest, most secure systems in the world that is protecting your data and ensuring that the system is robust, your privacy is protected, but that it delivers the functionality that you require. We understand in this day and age how very important it is to protect data. Now, I've always said that on your iPhones and your Androids, you have far more sensitive and personal information than you will be giving the NIDS. And you give it every day without question, without second thought, without worry. But we understand that we are being judged at a higher standard We are being judged against our history. And we are being judged against our own culture of mistrust and suspicion. And therefore, we have to take measures. We have to put in place systems. I mean, we literally have to operate on a zero-fail mission to protect your data. Because that is the only way we're going to ensure that you sign on and participate in the NIDS. And so I want to assure Jamaica that we take it very seriously and we have put in place the measures. So as we position ourselves in the dynamic, ever-evolving global economy, improving international competitiveness has been a significant issue for Jamaica. And while this effort requires a multifaceted approach, it has become increasingly evident that attaining and sustaining high levels of productivity is one crucial element of success. We have come a long way, and we can do significantly more with the full adoption of digital identification. This is not a point that should be subsumed and glossed over in the presentation. The government is serious about improving our productivity. The productivity equation is complex. It is multivariate. And there is one element of the productivity equation, which is reward, otherwise called remuneration, otherwise called compensation or pay. And we are, as a government, seeking to, particularly in the public sector, address the compensation variable in the productivity equation. There is another element to it, and that is systems and institutions and how these work. And one system is the identification system. As we require greater accountability for the use of public resources, identification of beneficiaries become very important. Because even with the distribution of public goods, you still need to identify the private beneficiary. And if it is that you have to identify individually each time a benefit is given, and it takes minutes to verify identity, you add up how much time that will take for each transaction that takes place in your society. Efficient societies have worked out a way to minimize the time for identity verification, and therefore they increase the velocity of their transactions. And that's really the issue here. How do we make Jamaica a more productive state? Identification is one, but there are many others, including the reform of the public sector and how we structure our entities, how we deliver services. And the NIDS is a cross-cutting feature in everything that we do. But as we seek to become productive and grow and modernize, there is an emerging space in which Jamaica needs to participate. And that emerging space is a digital space. More and more of our services, of our functionality, are being transitioned into the digital space. And the NIDS will not just identify you physically, person to person, but it will be able to assist you in establishing identity in the digital space. And again, that is another area of efficiency. So we're making progress. If you look at it over 40 years, we have been crawling. but in the last 5 years, we have started to sprint. And we are this close now to the finish line. The National Identification System will be crucial in boosting the growth of e-government and increasing the effectiveness and quality of trusted public services. This system will further help the private sector in the authentication of credentials for online services like e-banking and e-commerce. You will recall earlier this year, 10 financial institutions signed an MOU to be a part of the NIDS pilot. The fact of the matter is that our aspiration to become a digital society would be a pipe dream without NIDS. The biggest challenge to transacting online versus transacting in person is to authenticate the identity of the person with whom you are transacting. Now, I don't think anyone in this room would have had to sign on to the CARE program during the pandemic. Maybe a few. During that process, and I'm sharing MPs would understand, MP Williams, you would have had, well, both Williams, Minister Williams and MP Williams. The government was giving a grant. I believe it was $10,000 or maybe a little bit more, to just as support. So these are persons who we had no prior knowledge of. There were other programs like the SET program and so forth, where the person that was accessing the grant we had prior knowledge of. They were employed, and so there was some data about them. This was now a grant to a Jamaican that had no connection to the government except maybe a TRN, and some didn't have. And we had to go through a process of setting up an entire front end to be able to capture the data, to be able to verify that your taxpayers' dollars went to the beneficiary as identified by the criteria. Now, that process required MPs, though they were not asked officially, but many wanting their constituents to benefit. They went and they had to get telephones and computers, set them up in their offices, asked the people to come in, and assisted them with the data entry. It became obvious to a lot of the MPs that this was a time-consuming and frustrating process. Some of them didn't have any ID that was valid. Some of the persons who were genuine beneficiaries based upon the criteria set by the government had no TRN, didn't remember what their TRN was. They had several ID cards, but none of them would qualify them to benefit. And so the MPs had to go out and assist in getting them registered on some system that would meet the standard for them to be accepted to get the benefit. Even after they uploaded the data and the payments were to be made, TRN numbers were wrong, bank account numbers were wrong. It was almost an impossible task. I mean, even up to today, there are some persons who have not gotten their benefits because we just couldn't verify their identity. During the pandemic, for persons to actually receive the benefits, the government had to, in the pandemic, establish a physical payment window. I went to visit it. It was at the National Stadium, where thousands of people had to gather in a line to get the benefit. In the pandemic, where we shouldn't have gatherings, but that's how they would get it. That's just the only way, because our digital systems to be able to enable online transaction which is what the NIDS support, was just not at the level of maturity where it could treat with that. In the future, God forbid any other such need, but there will always be need for the government to engage in mass beneficiary identification and mass delivery of service. With the NIDS, that won't be necessary. One identification number will get you access to all government services. But the NIDS gives other opportunities as well, because with your NIDS, you can now get a digital wallet, and it enables the use of the central bank digital currency. So the government could have easily digitally transferred to your digital wallet in central bank currency, digital currency, the benefit. You would never need to leave your house, to stand up in a line, to wait for hours to access the benefit. It is going to be a leap for many Jamaicans to appreciate that this is possible. But we have to start. The world is not going to wait for us to appreciate that much of what we are doing now is going to become obsolete, and the services must transition to digital platforms. This is an inescapable and imminent project. We have no choice but to move towards the digital society. So, as I close my presentation, allow me to express thanks to all the departments and agencies and the ministries that worked on this project, the legal team from the Ministry of Justice, from the Chief Parliamentary Council, the drafters. I mean, we have had back and forth. I think that this was, for me, an educational exercise. I learned so much about the law in the robust debates that we had in coming to the final conclusion on the new policy and the new law. And I'm satisfied that we have paid due respect to the ruling of the courts, and that the law that we have could very well be a model for other countries in the Caribbean to adopt, certainly in terms of protecting the very high constitutional standards that we have in our country. I want to also acknowledge the IDB and the government of Korea, who have funded the project. And IDB in particular has been a long-standing funder, supporter of that, not just the NIDS, but the ecosystem of identity verification in Jamaica. I want to make special mention as well of the Joint Select Committee that participated in the debate and that ensured that the bill that we have is a strong bill and that will meet the requirements of the legal requirements, but at the same time give the services that are promised. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you now to join me as we tour the new facilities, the Card Personalization Center, and the first enrollment center under the National Identification System. I encourage everyone to participate and to support this pilot. And I'm hoping, Warren, that we will get through the pilot in, how long will it be? So by the end of this financial year, the pilot will be finished. And the beginning of the next financial year, we will start the issuance of national identification cards. So it's a long journey. We are 3 months away from full rolling out, this interim period is, as you have said, we are coming out of diapers and we are making sure that there are no accidents. God bless you all, and thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. The world is not going to wait for us. We have no choice but to move towards a digital society. Those are some very important words from our Prime Minister. And at this time, we're just going to ask that Minister Floyd Green just give our closing remarks before we start touring of the facilities.
Thank you very much, Sir Richard. Our Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Mr. Hugh Graham, representing the Leader of the Opposition, our Minister of Education, Minister Favour Williams, other special invited guests, of course, MP Robinson, MP Williams, Amy Tacho, our Chief of Mission here in Jamaica, Mr. Benjamin Rossett, our Modernization of State Specialist from the IDB, Dr. Warren Vernon, our Program Director from NIDS, and other members of the NIDS team. Of course, I see our RGD team is here, members from the OPM, members of the media, our online audience, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Diplomatic Corps. Good morning, everybody. I think as we all sit and contemplate, we all think about how personally or collectively we can make Jamaica a better place. How can we ensure that we are better serving our people, that we are more efficient, that it is easier to open a bank account, to transact business? How can we ensure that we're taking advantage of the digital transformation that's happening across the world? I do believe if we are really to make Jamaica a better place, then we have to have a big vision, and we have to back up that vision with action. Thankfully, we have a Prime Minister who has a big vision and who has backed up that vision with action. And I want us to give the Prime Minister a big round of applause, because we are here because of the vision that he has outlined very clearly to us as a government, that we should be the forerunner in the region for digital transformation, that we should work day and night to use technology to make life easier for our people, and that more importantly, we have to get it done in a short period of time. And I can tell you, from the early days, I always found that the Prime Minister's approach is very hands-on. And I remember, PM, when we were first going through the first iteration of the NIDS bill, and there was a retreat, and we were very surprised when we saw the Prime Minister himself come and sit in the retreat and work with the legal drafters and those of us who are so appointed to go through the various clauses. And I think that has set the tone for our national identification system, that no matter the challenge, it is so important that we have to get it done. And you feel that way when you interact with the technical team, led by Dr. Vernon, that they have the vision and they're willing to put in the work to achieve what we want to get done. And I want to commend Dr. Vernon and the technical team, CTD, Hemmings Allison, PSUL, even though she's not here. But that has been the journey to where we are now today. And we're not done yet. So we will be doing a number of things over the next few months. Importantly, we will start in now and leading into January and into the next 3 months, embark on a massive public education campaign to ensure that people know the benefits of our national identification system, that there is nothing to fear. Prime Minister, we have already gone out into the field and we've done some surveys to see what are the beliefs around the national ID, and the good news is that things are looking up. That people want a system where they do not have to use multiple identifiers to prove that they are who they say they are. That more importantly, Jamaicans are saying to us, PM, that they want a system where they don't have to go to one government agency, fill out a document, and then go to another agency and give them the same information to transact business. They want to be able to give their information once, and we use the technology to port that information across the government service. It will be good to know that we have already engaged a number of our ministries, departments, and agencies. We had a consultant on board, and we're looking at the use cases, those services that really impact our population, and we're moving to digitize those services. So we're already in conversation with the Ministry of Labor to see how many of those services, the TAJ, how many of those services we can digitize to make life easier for our citizens. Already, we want to move to a stage where we don't need another document to prove that you're licensed to operate a motor vehicle. Your NIDS card will be that card that has all that information. So for us today is a very, very good day. We have set about to establish an identity system that you can trust. And as we go on the public education campaign, we will tell you about the fact that this is the first system in Jamaica that has a double oversight, that both of them are independent. So the ECJ will ensure that we're keeping in accordance with the Act, and the Information Commissioner will ensure that we're keeping in accordance with the Data Protection Act, and both report to Parliament. And I'll tell you, PM, we've already started some of the engagement, and I had a wonderful time at Bridgeport High School. And I mean, we had to stop the questions. We had questions non-stop. But the questions that got me the most was one young man stood up and he said, "This sounds very good, but I want to know, if you were to lose the election, would the other side support it?" Very good question. Clearly, I told him and I assured him losing the election is not on the cards. And he felt good about that. But I was happy to be able to say that having gone through a joint select process, having gone through Parliament, both houses, there have been clear expressions that this is not a government project. This is a government and opposition hand in hand to ensure that we create a new Jamaica. So with that said, today is a wonderful day. And I look forward to more days of this nature where you genuinely feel like you're participating in a process to make Jamaica a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Green. And ladies and gentlemen, the moment that you have been waiting for. Are you ready? Are you ready? Right. I'm going to invite at this point that you affix your eyes to your left, my right. We are going to be doing the cutting of a ribbon for the enrollment center, the first enrollment center under the NIDS. And I'm going to invite at this time the Prime Minister, Mr. Hugh Graham, representing the leader of the opposition, Mr. Julian Robinson, and Minister Floyd Green to make their way to that area. And Minister Favour Williams. And for those who are unable to make their way over to that area, we will utilize the screens so that you will be able to see what is happening on that side of the facility. So if our technical people could just punch it up in our screens so that we will be able to see what is happening. And so everyone is set. They have their wonderful NIDS hat. And now we're going to move towards the cutting of the ribbon, followed by the tour of the facility. After 3, 1, 2, 3. There we go. And so now the tour will commence. Unfortunately, it's a small area. So we're just going to ask that you bear with us as we allow the Prime Minister and the Minister to do the tour first, and then we will do another group after. You can also watch it on the screen so that you can see what is happening. There are 4 enrollment rooms in the area, and also there are provisions for persons with disability. So at this time, the Prime Minister is meeting the staff of the enrollment center, and she will take him through the various rooms that are within the location, followed by the Prime Minister will be the first to enroll in the technical pilot project. And the Prime Minister will now make his way into the enrollment center, where he will be enrolled as one of the first persons under the National Identification System technical pilot. This is history in the making, ladies and gentlemen, and if you are watching it, you're also a part of history.
If you pre-enroll, it makes it move a little bit faster, but if you don't, you'll still try and accommodate you. Because you do need to be able to present some documentation, you need to prove that you are, eligible for enrollment. Basic information, your birth certificate is all that we require, or proof of residency. So we will check to see if you have that.
All right, so help us to understand the steps. So firstly, there will be an online portal.
There is an online portal.
And on that online portal, you will register.
You can pre-enroll, yes.
So you pre-enroll, and this is just saying you're at this point waiving to the NIRA, that is the National Identification and Registration Authority, to say, I want to be registered.
I want to be registered.
And so you go and you put in your username, maybe an email account.
You're giving them basic information.
You give basic information.
Just like if you're going to get your visa. You give them the information there. When you come, you give us the documents, we will scan it and upload it.
So you don't scan and upload anything to that portal?
You can, but we will still need to verify when you take it.
So you have to take the physical documents that you have.
Physical documents with you.
Right. But once you've done it this one time, you don't have to ever do it again.
That's it.
Until it expires. We will have to, in 10 years, it will have to be renewed eventually, but it's not.
No, but the documents,
so
you don't have to come with the documents again. No, you will establish who you are.
It will establish who you are. So once it's done, it's done. So that's the pre-enrollment process. But as we know, not everybody has access to internet, and we want this to be something that everyone who is willing has the opportunity to access. So if you do not have access, we will make it available to you. You can walk in as much as is possible. We will have available slots for those persons who are unable to register online. So if you're unable to pre-enroll, you can come in to the station with your documents and we will assist you. We can accommodate walk-ins. We won't be able to accommodate everyone right away, but you can come in and we will assist you if you come in with your documents.
I want you to go through the process.
We would prefer.
Yeah, but I want to understand the process.
Okay.
So that's very important. So, in the pilot project.
In the pilot, go online, pre-register, come in with your documents, scan, and you're done.
Okay. But if you don't have internet,
if you don't
and you're walking past central sorting office, say, you know what, let me go and register. You could walk in and
you might have a bit of a wait though.
Yeah, and what we're trying to do in the pilot PM is you know, we're targeting groups. Because really what we're trying to do is to test the system. So we're going to, for example, partner with the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities, coordinate with some of those people to come and get the ID. We want them to go through the process. We're going to have walk-ins who come through the process. We're going to go right across the social and economic profile of people because we want everybody to literally try it out. So we will do selected groups because we want the feedback as well. So for example, when they're finished with that process, we want them to tell us how was the enrollment, how long did it take, what did you think about walking in, you know, and we're not going to tell the staff it was walking, but they will be pre-selected because we want the feedback so that when we're rolling out nationally, we can say, well, let's tweak this, maybe once they scan and we verify, we don't need them to bring in, things like that. You know, that you can only really work through when you start the system and get it up and running.
So in the enrollment process, you're going to have targeted as well as random.
As well as random, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So now you're not really calling upon the public to come in?
No, not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
And none of the IDs generated during the pilot process, will those be full IDs or you will...
They're full IDs. They're full IDs. They're full IDs. All intents and purposes, especially depending on, so, you know, once we do the verification, because what you'll see, we're fully built out now at this location. So we have our enrollment officers, we have our verification officers, right? So once they do the verifications and we can verify that you are who you say you are, right? And we, for example, you have your TRN number, and we go through that process. Once you give you the ID card, then that's good to go.
Okay,
right?
great. So I get my ID card.
You're very special because, you know, I don't ever go into the verification.
You have to verify that this is the Andrew. You have several Andrew.
Your ID is very special, PM, so.
The only verification is going to be?
Your fingerprint and your picture. So that's and your signature. So the biometric information we take is very basic, as you said. Only what we need. So it's your fingerprint, your signature, if you can sign, and your photograph, as you see now.
All right, good. All right, so tell me now. Look here, I don't want anybody filming my fingerprint.
We are going to give you some privacy.
Yes.
Only the enrollee is going to be...
Perfect, thank you.
And I just be there around that side.
Right, so if you will excuse us.
Yeah, but I think we do want
yes, we want to see
afterwards, sir. You don't have to do, we don't want to bring a we can get something.
Right, and then I pretend like I'm signing. Alright? But you're not going to see the actual thing. So I think they want us to put, we're going to do this, and then this, and then thumbs, right? And then roll, and roll. That's it? Focus it?
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to pretend like I'm doing it again. So I'm not touching the screen. And then this. And then it's awkward. So I have to stand. And then you have to roll it. Roll it. That's it. And then I have to keep my signature.
Sir.
Can you get it?
Yes, there you go, sir.
Good. Alright. And then I'm looking into the camera. Look here, I don't want to hold the picture, so.
You will be able to see it there on the monitor.
Do I have to take it with my glasses, or?
No glasses.
I have to take off my glasses? Are you going to see this crease?
Just take your time.
Alright, so you don't have to make this move with this. Alright, good. That's it. Thank you, then.
Alright, back out. We have to come out now. We have to come out of the room. Go take video then.
Is the burn on?
See, you go take videos.
Ready? No. Oh.
My friend, thank you. I thought that you wouldn't see me say. All right, let's go.
inception to realization. It began in the 1970s with the case for a national registration system with each person from birth issued with a unique number. By the 1990s, the Electoral Advisory Committee, EAC, made a recommendation for the establishment of a body to implement a national registration system, and as such, Cabinet approved the establishment of a national registration unit in the Ministry of Health in 1993, leading to the taking of a national registration bill in 1995, which was later presented to Parliament in the year 2000. In July 2011, approval was given for the National Registration Unit to be transferred from the Ministry of Health to the Office of the Prime Minister. Then, in September 2011, the GOJ received a US $670,000 grant from the Inter-American Development Bank to commence the preparatory work required for the implementation of NIDS. The NIDS project was officially launched at the Jamaica House on September 27, 2011. By December of that same year, Cabinet approved the development of a NIDS policy. This was followed by the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the League of Jamaica Limited and the Government of Jamaica to provide technical support in the management of the ICT consultancy required to design the NIDS architecture. In November 2016, the NIDS One paper was tabled in Parliament, and by June 2017, Prime Minister Andrew Holness opened the debate on the National Identification and Registration Bill in Parliament, which was eventually passed in November 2017 by the Houses of Parliament. A technical and security committee was established by the Office of the Prime Minister to design and develop the requirements for a new electronic and digital identification system. Also in that same year, the Office of the Prime Minister initiated an international competitive bidding process to identify a consortium of international and local experts to supply the National Identification System solution. That process lasted 2 years and concluded in 2019 when a contract was awarded to the PBS Consortium made up of Interest Data Hub, PBS Jamaica, Group Provision, and Affairs Group to supply the National Identification System solution. In February 2018, the Government of Jamaica signed a main agreement with the IDB for $68 million for the NIDS and public projects. However, the act did put a snag in 2019 when the Supreme Court ruled that the National Identification and Registration Act of 2017 was null and void and of no legal effect. Committed to realizing the vision of the NIDS, the government recalibrated its approach with the design of a new NIDS policy, which led to the Prime Minister, Most Honorable Andrew Holness, taking a new National Identification and Registration Act 2020 in December 2020, which made provisions for a voluntary NIDS.
I table a bill so entitled the National Identification and Registration Act 2020.
Committed to an inclusive effort, a joint select committee comprising both political parties to review the new NIDS bill was formed. The first sitting of the committee started on January 5, 2021, and various groups, organizations, and individuals were allowed to make submissions to the committee. On Tuesday, July 6, 2021, Honorable Darrell Chuck laid on the table of the House of Representatives the report of the Joint Select Committee.
Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of the House a copy of the report of the Joint Select Committee on its deliberations on a bill shortly entitled the National Identification and Registration Act 2020.
The House of Representatives on Tuesday, July 20th, approved the report of the Joint Select Committee.
The question before the House is that the report be now approved. Those in favor? Those against? That is not it.
The legislation made provisions for the voluntary and secure national identification system for Jamaica, and a bill entitled the National Identification and Registration Act 2021 was tabled.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will move to introduce and have read the first time a bill shortly entitled the National Identification and Registration Act 2021.
Later that year, on September 21st, 2021, the House of Representatives began debating on the NIDS, which was eventually passed in the House of Representatives on October 13, 2021, by the Senate on November 19, 2021.
I am honored to rise once more today to thank you all for the National Identification
NIDS was now back on track, and by January 4th, 2022, Prime Minister imposed Honorable Andrew Holness for the NIDS Confidential Center in Kingston. This was followed up with the contract signing between the JISTV Limited and the Government of Jamaica on May 6, 2022 to facilitate the digitalization of records process of the RGD. No sooner, Jamaicans were introduced to the design of the National ID card in the House of Representatives on May 24, 2022. The government of Jamaica, 2022, signed a memorandum of understanding with deposit-taking institutions to participate in the pilot of the National Identification System, NIDS. Today, the government of Jamaica is proud to launch a technical pilot for the National Identification System, NIDS, a simple, safe, and secure way to verify one's identity. One ID, many opportunities.